friend of mine was in Florida at a wedding, Cameron was there. And he said, so, I hear you're in the Bexley. He said, I can lie there for so I was like, what?
They don't have a signed agreement.
Right, that's all it is.
We're ready.
Sorry about that.
I know. So,
Do I get a tablet?
yeah, he's trying to get one set up for you. They had passcodes locked. He's trying to find out what the passcode is. Are you sure?
You can have mine.
All right, we're gonna start. Bill says he's okay.
Memorize.
I know. We'll call to order the June 12th, 2025 Bexley Architectural Review Board meeting. And Matt, when you're ready, can you call the roll?
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Benoska.
Here.
Mr. Heyer.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Madam Chair Tony.
Here. Can we have approval of the meeting minutes from last month? Your board member, did everybody get a chance to read them? Board member that will make a motion?
So moved, Scott.
Second, higher.
Sorry, no problem.
And call the roll, Matt?
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Benoska.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Heyer.
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
I'm gonna abstain since I wasn't here last month.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is the time for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to the board about something that is not on the agenda tonight? If you're here for the agenda item, we will get to it in the right order. Okay, seeing no one. We have, the board has gone through all of the applications and we have come up with some of the applications that we have put on our consent agenda. And so these are the applications that we have put on that agenda. The first one is ARB 25-24 and the address is 131 North Cassingham. The second one is ARB 25-29 and the address is 2431 Elm. The third one is ARB 25-30 and the address is 111 South Roosevelt. And the last one is BZAP 25-23 and the address is 112 North Parkview. Is there anyone in the audience that came to speak about any of those address or any of those applications? Okay, I want to just make sure because we will take one vote to approve those. I think some of the board members did have some little tweaks that got made to those applications.
Yes, sorry. There were several conditions for a couple of them. You guys know what they were. Every one of them was accepted and actually a couple thank yous for some good ideas on some of them. So they're all implementing all the conditions and suggestions that were given.
Awesome. Okay, is there a board member that will make a motion to approve all 4 of those consent agenda items?
So moved, higher.
Second, Hall.
Ms. Benoska.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Heyer.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we have 2 items that have been removed from the agenda tonight and are being moved to the July 17th meeting for ARB. And I just want to make a note that it is the 17th of July. It is not the 10th. Normally we meet on the 2nd Thursday of the month, but for next month we are being moved to the 3rd Thursday. So those 2 applications are BZAP 25-16. The address is 103 South Cassingham. And the second one is BZAP 25-18 and the address is 653 Eau Claire. If there's anyone here that came for those applications, they will not be heard tonight. They will be heard at the July 17th meeting. Do we need to make a motion on that?
Yes,
Is
please.
there a board member that will make a motion to move those to the 17th?
Motion to move the 2 tabled submissions to the 17th.
Second, higher.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Ms. Benoska.
Yes.
Mr. Heyer.
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
Yes. Okay, We will start with new business then. Our first application for new business is ARB 25-26. The address is 973 Montrose. The applicant is Charles Leinbach and the owner is Oliver Charles Leinbach. The applicant is seeking architectural review and approval of a certificate of appropriateness to replace the existing garage. Is the applicant present? Please come forward and we'll swear you in. Aaron, do you want to give a little bit of background on this?
Do you want to give a little bit first?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Do you state your name and address?
Oliver Leinbach, 973 Montrose.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
I'm sorry?
You swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
So this came about as a part of our code enforcement. We recognized multiple issues with the property. However, one main one is that the garage had been demolished. And as you all know, as a part of our code, the demolition of a garage requires a replacement plan approved by this board before the demolition of a garage can occur. So we reached out to Mr. Leinbach and he has submitted an application to replace the garage.
Okay, so in your packet, there is a proposal for a replacement, but it is just they're not true elevations and plans. So what what Mr. Lineback and I had talked about is that he needs to get those done by, a professional of some kind, a drafts person or whatever. But we're coming to ask you if he can move ahead with fulfilling all those code enforcement requirements and then remanding the design of the garage to me or tabling it. It's up to you. There's not really any proposed difficulties to this. It's a 20 by 24 garage with a pitch to match the house and with siding to match the house, but it's just not well represented in the in the rendering here. The siding looks like a different color. I want to make sure it's the same color. The eaves are those lamb chop eaves. I want to make sure that they match the house. Those kind of details. And I'm happy to follow it through. I know we are making sure that we stick to the code and bring garages here initially now, just to make sure we adhere to the code. So it's really up to you all if you would like to just remand this to me to work on final details and elevations with him or have him come back. What I'm going to be looking for is everything matching the house. It's a very, very cute house.
Okay, is there a board member that would like to go first?
If I may, Madam Chair, the garage you see in the picture is no longer there.
Right.
It has been demolished.
I'm sorry. Forgot that
I
little
forgot
detail.
that. I think I forgot that as well. I just want to point that out.
That's what the code issue is for why he's here now, is that there is no longer a garage there.
Just so we're understanding, the garage there looks like it was a 4-car garage and what's being proposed is a 2-car, correct?
And that's okay.
And that's
Per
fine.
code.
Per code, okay.
Yeah, in R6 zoning district, which this is, a required 2 enclosed off
Okay,
street parking spaces. That's the requirement. So 2 is okay.
okay.
I'm just gonna go down through that and just start. If you don't have any questions, you can just move it on. But Mr. Hall, will you start?
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I think it's in the right space. I think there's details that need to be worked out, and I think you're perfectly capable of running through those, Karen, so.
Scott?
Yeah, conceptually, I think it's fine. Heights to meet code and all that sort of detailing. I like the fact that there's, considerations for scaling this with lights and, added window details. So I would recommend keeping those.
Mr. Heyer?
We don't really have a site plan, so we don't know what the offsets are to the alley.
Those are things I'm working through with him. So Mr. Leinbach and I are in contact.
So really, it's just a matter of meeting the ARB garage requirements, because there's window requirements, there's eave height requirements that need to be met. Normally, we see those. Will this come back to us, or is this going to
That's
just?
up to you.
Yeah.
That's up to you.
I mean, in due diligence, I think it should, because we do review all garage, these garages typically, right? Are there garages that don't come back to us?
That is a.
That has been the practice for a while, but really according to code, they should come
They
here.
should come here, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, in deference to other residents, we should see it. Just so we can see the details and,
Yeah, I would request maybe a tabling and we can keep it on the table for a time if you wish, but he's working through we're working through a lot of things.
well, I think
Garage.
at our last meeting, we had some approvals with the condition that some of the details be sent to the board for our, review, even though it
Yeah.
moved forward. And I would suggest in this case, we could do that.
Yeah.
If there's anything that we see individually or that Ms. Bokor sees, then it would come here and we would have to review it. Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Scott, are you okay with that?
I am. I think, the rendering looks like it was photographed on a printed vinyl banner. So I'm not sure how specific it is, or if that's the rendering of the house plan you purchased, or if that's just a plan that you found that was matching. So I think for us to be able to review and quantitatively approve a design, we need to know the kind of documented design criteria for us to be approving. So eave heights, total ridge height. The pedestrian door, if it's at 6'8", which would be minimum height, looks like it's an 8-foot garage door then, and then it maybe puts that eve at 10 feet in this rendering. So definitely need to see it come back to us.
Mr. Lambach, do you understand then what the board is asking for?
Yes.
So just to reiterate, kind of a full plan set of what you're doing. And if it is just a pre-bought garage or whatever, they should have plans for it. Ms. Bokor will walk you through it. And then next month, when it comes before the board, if we see it and you've got everything that we need, then you'll be on the consent agenda and it'll go through quickly and you won't have to come back to the meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay, so you can just work with Ms. Bokor to get it all submitted within the next couple weeks and then
Sure.
it'll be quick. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're asking for a tabling to next month, which would be July 17th. So you would have to have all the information to her 2 weeks prior to that meeting.
The third, somewhere around there.
Okay,
Okay.
is there a board member that will make a motion for a tabling?
So moved, Scott?
Second, higher.
Mr. Heyer,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Benasca,
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. We'll hopefully not see you back here in
Thank you.
a month, but
I'll be in. I'll send you an email.
Okay. Thank you.
the next application for new business is ARB 25-27. The address is 821 Grandin. The applicant is Taylor Summer and the owner is Jerry Haas. The applicant is seeking architectural review and approval of a certificate of appropriateness to add a 2.5-story addition to the rear of an existing 2-story home, raising the existing roof by 3 feet to make this possible, a 2nd-story deck off of the rear of the addition, and replacing an existing 1-car garage with a new 2-car garage. Is the applicant present? Please come forward and be sworn in.
You state your name and address, please.
Taylor Summers, 7422 Silverleaf Court, Columbus.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay. This application is for an addition both in height and in floor plan to an existing house. You guys have seen this house before. It's the one that has the purple color with the yellow trim. Is that right? Is the trim yellow?
It is a slate house. It has purple trim and a yellow door and shutter.
That's right. But they were here before. In fact, I think Taylor, you did the first project. So Today Taylor called me, or we text back and forth, and we realized that the latest version that she did and submitted it on time was not updated. There's not a lot of differences. And there are some challenges with this project that we have walked through with the zoning officer because we're debating whether it actually needs a variance or not. But it's my recommendation that we go ahead and give it some architectural critique today. And Taylor and I have talked all of this through. Whether you feel comfortable with the design and want to go ahead and approve it, or do that with conditions or table it, is up to you. But what I would like to do is open up the latest version, which is very similar to what's on here already, and just have Taylor kind of walk through what the differences are.
The differences are mostly colors, a little bit of material, and just some additional information. The actual footprint has not changed from what you saw to now.
And is what we're looking at in our screen, has this been updated?
Yes,
The latest.
it'll say the latest version.
So originally I had some colors called out. I was trying to complement the existing house. Per a recommendation, we discussed simplifying the structure by having more cohesive colors. So now proposed is essentially matching the colors of the existing house onto the addition. So all of the first and second floor would be that slate color. And it is, anything new is board and batten, which there is some board and batten on the front of the house that is painted that slate color. And then anything that is above the eave would be currently proposed shake. I can't remember, honestly. I think that is also proposed as the slate. And then the trim would match the existing that's on the house, that light gray purple color. And then there's just one door off the rear that I currently have called out as matching the color of the front door. So that's the main changes from what you've previously seen.
Thank you. Is there a board member that would like to go first? I'm looking at you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you. I think the approach to the massing is appropriate. You're raising the existing roof, and all zoning and other conditions aside, as long as that's appropriate. That would be architecturally appropriate because then it's still the dominant mass, and your addition, though large, is still subservient to the main roof. I do think that the balance of the massing is going to be out of balance because of the size of the addition and the third floor, even though it's on a dormer attic, which is appropriate typically on the front of a house, but when we have it on the side and back of a house, it's a little bit more dominant. But I'm not a huge fan of the large blank wall on the larger blank wall, I guess, on the side south exterior elevation, bottom right. It seems a little bit plain to me. I'd love to see a little bit more detail on the back porch, the rail. I think that little second floor porch, the detail of that will be important, though I think it's fairly clear what your intent is. I think the actual details would be nice to see. But overall, I think it's fairly well balanced. And I guess we don't have any existing windows that we're wanting to architecturally significant matching, so we're just aligning to the similar style.
The existing windows on the existing house are a hodgepodge of sizes. So I did match a width of one of them and a height of one of them,
Sure.
but they're all so very different that.
No, and I get it. You're not going to replace all of those, and there's no reason not to stay in that same flavor. But I think other than that, I think it's in a solid direction for what you're trying to do.
Thank you. May I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
For the blank part of the house, the windowless second floor area, it's a little difficult to fit in windows there based on the floor plan, but we do have shutters on the front of the house. Are you guys opposed to having, shutters that look as though it's closed over a window?
Do you want to answer that?
I'm not opposed to it. I think, it looks like that's your the headboard wall of your bedroom. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think there's some real estate there, at your
the-
nightstands where you could do, but I'm not going to mandate it. But I think doing something a little bit more on that facade would help.
Okay.
You aren't putting shutters on that side of the house, right? So if you did something that looked closed, it would be the only shutters on that side of the house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
You're
don't
gonna
know if
see
they would be
those-
shuttle, but it could be a panel, right? It doesn't have to be a shutter. But again, that's not really our,
I just wanted to get your feedback.
no,
on
no, I appreciate the question. So,
Mr. Hire.
Well, I've not seen this project before. Was this, this is the first time. I think I'm going to be a little bit more critical, because we've seen these attempts at raising roofs in South Bexley, and in my opinion, none of them have succeeded. And I don't think they've succeeded because they are out of character with the neighborhood. I understand the need for additional space, but I don't think that this is the South Bexley way to do it, to be honest. If the roof was a hip roof, like your neighbor, even though your neighbor's roof is lower pitched, it might work because it's a receding roof with no huge gables up on that third floor. And I might buy into that, but the scale of this, we saw one go up on Eau Claire. We've seen other attempts, and I live in South Bex. I live on Grandin, and I have not seen it successful. I think it changes the scale and the character of the neighborhood to its detriment. And so I wish there was another way to get the square footage and the needs that you have here. I get it. I mean, we put an addition on and, it's still not big enough. And, our lifestyles demand that we have all this more space, but this is the trick, right? I mean, it's getting the character of the neighborhood in line with the needs of the residents and their need for more space. I just wish there was a way to look at that roof maybe a little differently so that it wasn't so dominant, because you think you're only raising it a little bit, but in reality, again, from experience seeing this happen, it really does kind of dominate, and it changes the scale of everything on that street. And a lot of your neighbors are World War I houses. They're 1.5 and 1-story houses, except for your immediate neighbor, which has the hipped roof. So I can't be in favor of this as it stands, with the raising of the main roof, unless there was an option, to look at a different shape or somehow to clip, those large gables. There was one project where they actually did a clip to create a hip that was for just a portion of the top. I still don't think it was successful, but I guess I'm just asking for another study of that. I know what you're trying to do. I know that you need to get that addition at the back to fit and be subservient to the main house, and that's part of the design guidelines. But the other part of our design guidelines is to, study and fit in the character of our neighborhoods. And I don't think this does that.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. I guess my thought process with raising this is that switching it to that partially hipped gable or like a mansard or, some other way of raising the roof without increasing the height would actually make it more out of character than what is proposed.
Sure.
And then I guess my other question is just the ones that you feel did it incorrectly. Do you know how the slope of those roofs? Because I don't feel that 10, 12 is, unheard of or uncommon, but perhaps I am wrong.
Yeah, I mean, changing the slope, it's not about what you see from at the front, like if you're looking straight on, it's about the way we experience, especially South Bexley, well, all over Bexley, but mainly north and south, where we experience these houses in 3D. And those gable sides are really just going to take it out of character. So yeah, maybe the gambrel idea, it doesn't fit. It's even more out of character. This house doesn't have a lot of character, as a form as it is, and you're trying to improve that. And I like, and I appreciate that. But most of our houses have this 7/12, 8/12 pitch. And once we get out of that, I just feel that it's not in character anymore. And they over dominate. This house, the colors and everything. I mean, I walk down this street all the time, and it fits in well. I mean, it blends in, even though it's one of two-story houses just in that immediate on that side of the street, and the other ones, and that's South Bexley. You've got the World War I houses everywhere. And then you've got these 2 stories. Some of them are older, La Farm houses like we have at the end of Grandin, or, down by Charles, and so on. But it's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's really based on what I've seen. And I worry that raising the roof is going to just take it even more out of character in the neighborhood. That doesn't mean you're not going to get other votes here.
Ms. Panaska.
So you mentioned the 10 to 12 roof pitch. If we look at that elevation really quickly, I feel like you've got that proportion right from that back rear elevation. There's something nice about the scale of that. Where it gets lost for me is what happens up above, where you're trying to gain space in the attic by simply, extruding the wall up and making, little dormers. I wish they were more gable, or they were more of a softer approach than just extruded straight from the main roof. That there was a separation there, and I feel like it would help, especially that, which one is it? The north and the south elevations. There's just, it feels like an extruded sausage, for lack of a better word, and you just kind of cut it off, right? As opposed to, and I know why you're doing that, you're trying to gain space, but I wonder if you could be clever about that roof shape up there that would help scale it down a little bit and allow that, the proportion of that rear portion and the sides to kind of read as primary massing, and then have the smaller ones come out at the roof.
That's actually something we started exploring over the last week or two, was making those dormers smaller, different sizes. We just didn't get to where we needed to be
Yeah.
for today. But we've started exploring that.
So one question for you, and this is pure curiosity for me, you have an elevator that only goes to the second floor. And when I looked at the attic, I was like, is it because of heights? Is there a certain reason why it doesn't go all the way up to the attic?
Yeah, I mean, the height we have shown in the attic floor is the bare minimum possible. We don't even get to, 8 feet at the peak. The exterior walls are shown at 5 feet tall. I was really trying to keep this as small as possible while still achieving what we wanted to. So yeah, there was no way that the elevator, even if in the center, I don't think we could get it all the way up to that.
Okay, that's fair.
But thanks.
Mr. Hall.
Yeah, I actually think this is, a pretty nice approach to this. My really only true comment is, and there's 2, it's just a blank wall, and then the size of the dormers. But neither one of them are really bothering me so much. I just feel like there's an opportunity with the blank wall to get a couple windows on either side of the bed. I do think exploring, though, the dormers and scaling those down a little bit is just going to make this even better, but I'm not sure how that impacts your interior space either. So, and it doesn't really bother me significantly enough that it's throwing me way off. I think the massing feels pretty good to me. Yeah, and that's really it. That's it.
Thank you.
There are some things I like about what you're doing. I like your mixing of materials. I do think it kind of breaks up the massing a little bit. I am, a little bit concerned about the overall height. And when we have a demolition and a new build, we require a, like a streetscape where you are drawing all the houses and the heights and stuff around you.
Mhm.
Our way of kind of controlling that we don't end up with a giant, structure next to something that's, you know, much more in scale. And I'd like to see you do that.
Okay.
Because I can't tell whether this is gonna be the monster on the street by doing this.
Mhm.
And like Mr. Heyer, I think we have allowed some of these in the past and they have become kind of the monster on the street that don't feel very comfortable. So I would ask that you do that streetscape and you get the, you know, the elevations of all the buildings around you so that we can kind of get a feel for that. And then also a lot of people will bring in a modeled rendering in 3D so that you can see it. We aren't always looking at the flat faces, you know, the elevations, because I do think that will help us to really understand, you know, the massing of the building. So I would ask that you come back to the next meeting with those two new drawings so that we can kind of really get a feel for it and make sure we're comfortable with it.
Okay. May I ask some follow-up questions?
Yeah.
Okay. The ones that you guys have referenced as not having done it well, am I able to find out what those are so I
I can
can
discuss that with you after.
Okay. Just, it would help me understand what we like and don't like. And then I don't know if it made it in here, I don't know if it matters, but I did a site plan with all of the heights of the buildings, just in case you wanted to discuss them. But regardless, I'm happy to do the elevation if that's more
Yeah, because if
beneficial.
you do the elevations and you show us how close they are, I mean, every street is different, and so we'd like to see, you know, what is the size of the house, the gaps in between, and just if you draw all that just in a quick, you know, elevation, that really helps us to understand how big this is gonna end up
A
looking.
quick generalization up for it, just to get your feedback. It is currently very similar to the majority of the I looked at 3 houses to the north, 3 houses to the south, and the equivalent across the street and behind it. The majority of the houses, not all of them, there are some 1.5 stories, are very similar, like within, you know, a foot in either direction. Putting it 3 feet taller will make it the tallest of its adjacent neighbors, but the ones behind it, there's a lot more. We would not be the tallest of the street behind it. So, if it's okay with you guys on that elevation, I might throw the houses behind it in there.
The more information, the
Mhm.
better,
Okay.
honestly, it helps us to really.
Even some pictures of the streetscape, just
Okay,
the one behind it, just to give us more contextual information.
okay, great.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from everyone is that we'd like to see it back. Does everyone agree? Okay, so that would mean, oh, is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak about this application? Seeing no one. So what I'm hearing is that we'll table you to the next meeting, which is July 17th.
I'm not able to make it to the July 17th. Is there a different process for tabling it to a further date or?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
if-
table it to the August meeting.
We can do that now, or we can put the July 17th and you can just email me. Please make it in August if something happens that you can make it. I mean,
Okay, that's
what your schedule.
Yeah.
And again, you're more than welcome to submit all the information to Karen, and if you do it, you know, we, like I told the previous applicant, we review all this stuff earlier in the week. And so if we all look at it and can agree that we think it looks amazing, then you could get consent. So if not, then we can move you to the next meeting if you can't make it on the 17th.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay, so as for right now, we will table you to July 17th. Okay, is there a board member?
Just one comment, just can you add some dimensions, vertical height dimensions on your garage too? That's a new garage, correct?
They should be somewhere. They're in a south elevation.
Oh, they are.
On the sheet.
Oh, there they are. Okay, never mind. Strike that.
But could you do the same for the house? Because I kept looking for the house ones. I can see where You have the floor lines listed, but not actual dimensions to them.
I think these might be the old drawings. They are.
Go to
These are, yeah.
Yeah, they're on the updated drawings.
They're running right.
latest version
She
drawings, yeah.
says how much she's raising the E of the roof.
I see. Thank you. Sorry, I was just going back to see if the elevation, the height.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Well, just to clarify, are the elevations on the house there, other than the additional 3 feet and the,
Right there.
Yes,
Okay, there it
the
is.
overall
I
height,
see.
the existing is there, the overall height of the proposed is there.
I do have one last question, Madam Chair. How are you extending your chimney? So you're leaving the brick at its current elevation, you're gonna extend the clay tile insert. If you look at the photograph, there's a cap that comes out that caps your clay tile. I think it's a clay tile. You're looking to just extend that clay tile up another couple
Yeah,
feet?
I think it would be
go up
way
to the
too difficult to
photos.
match the existing brick.
And into the chimney on the second one there.
Slash, I don't want to put extra unnecessarily.
I'm not sure that's gonna look very good. If you zoom in even more on the left, yeah, that one.
I just don't know
I'm concerned.
logistically how to add more brick to that. I think it.
No, I think, I'm not saying that you need to add more brick. I think you're gonna create a architectural chimney by extending the flues up. And so now you have, so I think you need to look at that and make sure you design that appropriately. So it's not just the clay tile that's sticking out.
It looks something more like a chimney pot, kind of.
I think it comes a little bit, I mean, we do it sometimes where we make it architecturally. So in more commercial property, it might be a round tube or I don't think that would be appropriate here, but I think you need to just consider what your options are to make that, be able to extend that.
Okay.
What's the, the reality of a chimney, somebody that's going to work on this to be able to extend that, what that looks like? How is that made durable? And then what's the final aesthetic of it? Low maintenance aesthetic of that. Thank you.
I will make the motion for a table to the July 17th. Higher.
Second, Paul.
Ms. Panofska,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Hire.
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you back here. Okay, our last item for new business is BZAP 25-27. The address is 410 South Columbia. The applicant is Catherine Williamson. The owner is Rebecca and Mark Dawson. The applicant is seeking architectural review and a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for the approval of a certificate of appropriateness to replace the existing open-air breezeway, incorporate a mudroom, and add an additional living space.
You state your name and address, please.
Yes, Catherine Williamson, address 79 North Ohio Avenue.
Do you swear or
Yes.
affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this application is a recommendation to BZAP. I'm gonna start at the end and say that I think this might be a case where we need to move it to BZAP in order to see if this variance is even gonna pass. Then let me go back to design now. So we had some updated drawings that I actually got to you guys in time. But this is the original plan that exists now, and there's a breezeway there that originally had a variance granted. But as you can see from the pictures, I think they're in here.
I think they're in a
Okay.
separate file.
Separate? Okay, I want to bring them up. Yeah, there they are. It is a much more delicate kind of attachment than what the new proposed attachment is, which is, just by way of background, I know this isn't the zoning board, but that's why the variance has to be reaffirmed because it's a different plan completely. The new one is quite, it's quite a volume and quite a bit of massing compared to this. I hope you all had a chance to look at the new drawings. Let's see here. I think these are them. But let me just run through them. This is the new massing that replaced that breezeway. What I'm most concerned about is the details of how that faces the sides of both of the other properties on either side. It's a big mess. And I think it really needs to be very well detailed. Especially this elevation, which would be the north elevation. Kind of wonder why. I think some of the original details of the home can be seen in the pictures that aren't seen in here. And maybe some of those could be explored to look at. Additional window would be nice on the top floor. That's a lot of blank space right there. So especially given that the existing garage is already a very blank wall. So anyway, I'm going to hand it over to you to fill in any kind of philosophy behind this and your design intent and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you for the background. The purpose of the addition is, the Dawsons have 4 kids, they're a family of 6. They want more square footage for their family. So the 2-story addition kind of that's the purpose behind that. They also want to connect the garage just for practicality to be able to have that direct access into the house. The placement of it, we're trying to work around the 12-foot setback and also try to integrate with the existing roof. I think that was an addition that was put on at some point prior. So, it's like, how do you add the square footage, work around the setbacks, keep it simple, because I think the existing architecture of the house is simple. And so I think like Karen said, we first need to see the feasibility of even making this happen to begin with. Design wise, the house is stucco. I think we're interested in switching the material. And so in switching the material, we explored switching the window style, not completely, but slightly, sticking with divided light windows. The exact placement of everything is still a little fluid because we're working on the interior. But the intent too, with all of the existing stucco, that like the north elevation that we're looking at right now is existing, with the exception of those divided light windows on the first floor. There's existing shutters, existing 3/2 double hung windows. On the south side, I think the only change that we would be making to the windows and doors would be there's currently a door to the right of those 2 sets of French doors. We would try to change that to a window just so that we can put cabinets in front of that opening. And then right above that, we would try to add a window for a laundry room. But yeah, it's very fluid right now. So I think we just want to get your thoughts off the bat on this.
So again, I look at this as a preliminary conceptual review. And I think it would be appropriate to move it to BZAP without a recommendation, because it just doesn't make any sense to keep going with design if in fact BZAP's not going to be okay with the zoning. I don't have an opinion whether they will or not. I have no idea. There's probably some neighbors that may want to test.
And is it going to BZAP for zoning because of how close the garage is to the lot line, or what
Yeah.
all is it?
Yeah, so the original, or the house received a variance, I can't remember a long time ago, for the previous homeowner wanted to connect the principal structure to the accessory structure. And when you do that, it all becomes the principal structure. And so they were encroaching into that setback. Whereas, if it just stayed a detached garage, it would be fine because it's within 3 feet of the property line. But that variance was given for that project. And so this variance is a different project. It needs to go through the process again.
But that's the only thing that they're going to BZAP for, is that not massing or anything else?
No, I'm still trying to. Yeah, they don't need a variance for the actual addition part. because the garage is closer, but it's also stepped back more than 10 inches, which we say you're allowed to add on to a non-conforming structure as long as you step the addition back more than 10 inches. That's part of our code. So yeah, that's why, because the garage is close. It's a part of the structure.
The only change to the garage is the roof. Is that how I'm reading
Yeah.
it correctly? You're changing the hip to a
To,
gate.
to intersect with the addition. Mhm.
Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak about this application before I go to the board? Please come forward and be sworn in.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Alan Radner. I've lived at the house in the north for 40 years.
You'd like to swear?
Oh,
Your address?
400 South Columbia.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to support this application. And I would also like to thank the ARB because 20 years ago, they put in a green space for me. The person who bought the house was not a good homeowner, and I ended up for 20 years taking care of that green space, which still exists and still has the best trees on the property because the homeowner let all the trees die. These new owners, I don't believe, will do that. The only concern I have is if you look on my side of it, I think it's the picture, the next picture up I believe is my side.
Yes, this is.
The prior owner tore down a 150-year-old oak tree, and didn't even let the city take a picture of it. When we put in the new green space on his property, we did plant an oak there that does cover that and shields it from my property. And I've talked to them and we would like to preserve that. There are also two other very beautiful trees, a maple and a dogwood that fill that space. And with those, I would support this application because 4 kids are tough in a small space. Thank you.
Here. Okay, we'll go to the board then for questions. Can I say you want to go first?
It's hard to speak on this, knowing that, it's gonna go somewhere and, so conceptually. I wish the windows did match.
You think they should all be the
Uh,
same?
Well, at least the ones that you're replacing on the original.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're saying this was existing
Mm-hmm.
and this is new and we're doing a different facade treatment, new siding, different windows, at least the ones that you're replacing on the stucco,
Mm-hmm.
I feel they should match.
Stucco has a certain kind of style window. Siding has a different style window.
Well, I mean, I wish all of them matched
Yeah,
personally.
okay.
But maybe this is a preference that the owner wants. So, if we were voting on this today and we were talking about it in those terms, I would recommend at least the windows there would stylistically match. I understand the need for added space. And, it meets the height and massing requirements for BZAP, and really the only condition would be the garage. So, if it comes back, I'm sure we'd have additional comments. I think it's very large, still
Mhm.
keeping it at that height.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
again, very similar to the previous presentation. I kind of wish it was a little subservient to the original,
Okay.
but it's hard to do, right? Because that centerpiece that is with that blank wall in the middle,
Yeah.
if I were to do this, I'd be like, well, I would lower that so that you'd have 2 higher masses and this would be lowered, but I don't know that you can touch that. It's existing. So, tell me more about the reason to switch for the siding. Because you have it on the garage and you have it on the existing house.
Mhm.
And so you would have like two bookends of an existing facade treatment, and then you would have this one piece, which would really, really kind of stick out. And I'm just
Yep.
curious to know more about that.
I think it's just a preference. Just a preference of, you know, I think there's a lot of stucco already. It's not the most economical, you know, finish to do. And so I think just, it's an owner preference that if we don't have to do it, is there an alternative where we can make it work?
What kind of siding would you propose?
Probably James Hardy lap siding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, in terms of like width,
Exposure, maybe like 5 inches.
Okay.
It's fluid.
and, I did not look at the details at the eave that well, but I imagine you'd have to have some sort of detailing that would have to be maintained. Yeah, it's hard to speak in like full depth if
Mhm.
this doesn't pass through. So, I would recommend, if this does come back, to at least bring it back with a little bit more detail.
Mm-hmm.
Information on, overall heights, color, the details of the windows, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. Because I noticed even at the cornice, the garage matches the house. If you look at the pictures, and then I feel like some of that detailing is missing here.
Yeah, exactly.
So some of that, I feel it should be preserved.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hall?
So I don't think I have an issue with the siding. There's some siding on the dormer as a front. This is a beautiful house. by the way.
Both the dormers have
Yeah, it's a
siding.
beautiful house, by the way.
Mhm.
It's got a very good, nice street presence. So, at first I looked at it, I said, oh, the siding, but then I started looking at the pictures and there are remnants of that on the existing building. And I think as long as it stays in character with that,
Mhm.
I think it's good. I do struggle a little bit in the windows, I think are very important to match across too, but I do struggle with is the massing here a little bit. It wants to be subservient to the existing house. And I feel like if you look at your floor plan, it starts stepping back. And then you're proposing that this thing becomes a little more proud. I'd like to see it step back and just, and be, I get the additional space and wanting to maximize additional space, but being able to just downsize this and scale it down a little bit, I think would be important. And the dormer that is over the garage, I think on this one, bear with me. The existing, I think it should be more in character with the existing dormer. It's got 3 windows on it and you're showing just 2.
Yeah, it's a mistake on the drawing.
Yeah.
It
so
wouldn't,
I
it wouldn't
think-
change.
Yeah, I understand I'm not sure it's the right answer, but you're eliminating, you're sort of eliminating some of these beautiful, what I would say, hips and how they relate to each other. This breezeway that was put in between the 2 buildings was, a very elegant, minimalist connector between the 2. It was actually, I feel like it was done very well. And now we're going to go in and put this thing in there. And as I said, I think if it's stepped back, I'm okay with it being, siding as long as it's in character with the siding that's on the existing house. And I struggle a little bit. Are you raising the eave line on the garage itself?
No.
So that's the same height that it is existing. Okay,
Yeah.
it just doesn't look that way, but
Mhm.
but I would, and I think that needs to remain consistent, as well as I don't think the hip on that thing is in this one rendering
Mhm.
is really matching what's there
Mhm.
either. It looks very long and drawn out,
Mhm.
whereas the hips look a little bit more.
The ridge is a little longer. Mhm.
That's my things. I think it's very prominent and it's very proud. I think we need to look at in reverse and
Mhm.
scale it back and let it occur, but let it be subservient to the existing house. and then you're restructuring the roof on this garage, and you're not raising the eave or anything, if that's the case, then it should go back on exactly the way it is, as long as it matches that scale to the other, to what's going on. That's my comments. That's it.
Mr. Hire.
I am in full support of this project. I have a little different take on how the massing works, and I really think that if you kept the new addition between the garage and the back of the house as it is, if you did it in stucco, it doesn't have to be stucco, and it's not going to be, doesn't have to be ephes, which is a terrible material, but there is an in between, and the companies that make ephes like Stowe, they have a product that is a traditional stucco that's put onto siding. You can put it onto a wood framing with plywood. It does have a brown coat, and it has, you know, a mesh, but it's basically a very thin stucco layer after that. So it's more economic, but it's also real stucco. It's not ephes where you have an insulation board and then you just trowel on this 1/8 layer of crap. It's actually we're using it on a project in North Carolina right now, and it's more economical. The window details, you can still do the little returns and have the material come in. So, but the reason why I'm saying this is because I think you want this addition to feel like the house, because you want the house to feel like it really is that big. Like it is this one big original house. Forget about something that looks like an addition. It's all one house. And I really think that that's important, not only because of your neighbor to the south, which has a similar continuation of materials, but just because in central Bexley, this is common where you have extensions and, you know, sort of a telescoping of massing that is all of the same material, and it all is of an original house. I think your massing is so well done here that without that being stucco, it doesn't feel right. So I would strongly encourage you to do that. I would also, and not to be flippant or cheeky, but I would, if they want to expand, there are a couple houses in Bexley. One's on Broad Street, and I don't remember where the other one is, but they actually create a third floor, sort of like a tower. And with your neighbor to the south, you would still be under their height by putting a third floor on. So I would have, if this family wants to have fun and they want to create a third floor, I would be all for it. Because it's in the back, but it's also something that would add more character. You could do a different shape of openings or whatever roof. But it would help complement the horizontality of the rest of this, what is now, in my opinion, one big house, that extends from front to back. So I would encourage you and your client to have even more fun with it if the budget, if you do the cheaper stucco, maybe you save some money there. But the other problem with Hardy is I've never seen a trim carpenter that actually knows how to cut it properly.
I know.
And then you wind up using caulk to fill the gaps, and then you got to keep maintaining the caulk, and you have to use trim boards at the corners, and it looks cheap.
Yes.
So I would encourage you to look at these other materials, this sort of hybrid. Stowe has a product called Powerwall. It's called Powerwall CI, and it actually has a brown coat with mesh that you put on plywood, and then you finish it with the Stowe material. But you have all of that thickness of real stucco. So that's just a way to encourage you to say you can do it. I just think it needs to be one large central Bexley house for sure. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is really it's a practicality thing, it's like there's a lot of work to do on the inside too. So we're trying to balance making it feel good on the outside without going crazy. So
yeah, but if I looked at that and I took away all the horizontal lines and I put in shutters and I did the 6/1s for the windows, even with the difference on your first floor, you got the transom, and I know how you want to put the furniture in front and all that. That all totally makes sense. And you've got enough of these other trellis material things and porches that I think it would settle right in and feel like it was always there. And again, with the size of your neighbors, it just totally makes sense to present the house as this one big original house. I like that a
I like
lot.
that a lot. Thank you.
Mr. Scott?
I'm trying to find anything that I had left that wasn't just that. So my approach to this was, if it was stucco, I totally agree. It could be part of the main house, feel original. I'm assuming the last edition was already subservient, so they were stepping down as it went back. The garage was separated and they went back and reconnected it. You've now brought a mass that really resembles, at least in elevation, it is subservient in its positioning, but that in stucco, I think starts to give it the bookend that it needs on this scale, especially in this part of Bexley, is very appropriate. But if you were to do a siding material, and it looks like the existing siding is like a shiplap, maybe a V groove from the photo. It's hard to tell, but it's definitely doesn't look like a
I
lap.
think it's
siding.
diagonal as well.
Yeah, so I would at minimum match that, or maybe if you're gonna, again, need to do that type of horizontal siding, is to go with a more modern, allow it to be modern, allow it to be a lit shiplap or something that's not a lap siding. But then I think the roof line is a problem. I think you have to potentially look at that roof. I'm not seeing that. I know the roof line in the drawing up front is showing the chimney roof lower, but I think in the photos, it's all straight across. All of these additions were straight.
Yep.
Are you going to be repeating those same details on the eave?
Yeah, the
All the way
intent
around.
is to take what's there and continue it.
Those, all of the little
Mhm, like
brackets that are coming through.
yeah, the little decorative rafter tails and everything.
That would be appropriate. Then I would recommend staying with your form and getting rid of the horizontal siding. And I think the Stowe product it's a two coat stucco product. We've used that on actual commercial properties, and it's a solid product. So there are multiple manufactured, but Stowe is one of the leading. I don't like your dormer on the garage. I think it's off center of the garage. I wouldn't sleep at night approving that.
It's
I
yeah,
can't.
we can make it what is there is not how it looks in real
Okay.
life. It's off.
It's preliminary. I get it.
Yes.
And then one other question. So you have this large flat two-story facade, right? The main house has this porch and the roof over the kind of side entry. You have the backing step that was subservient massing, and then now we've kind of re-articulated this end massing. And then there's a patio, and I'm assuming that's outdoor patio. Is there any idea of trellising or a roof over that, or at least a roof over the door? I'm worried that's a really hot, blank,
It is.
terrible area.
It
And no
is,
matter
yeah.
what furniture you put in there, it's still going to be. So I would definitely look at how the building can kind of engage that a little bit more on that patio without being too dominant because of the nice architecture that's on the front main house. But I think there's an opportunity there to soften that. And I really like the new driveway being straight. I don't know was it an indie driver that owned that last
Well,
time?
no, I think Becky tried to.
I don't know how you
It's very
navigate that.
difficult
Doesn't seem to make
that,
sense.
pull in.
And of course, it looks like you're removing the trellis at the garage. Totally.
Yeah, hopefully we can.
Yeah, I don't have a
Like
problem.
the
with that.
columns.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. But other than, and I think the window comments from Ms. Panofsky is, if it's stucco, I think you really need to try to match. I think it'd have a real problem having a mismatched windows.
Can I ask you something about the windows? So the shutters right now they're like 12-inch wide, but they're very undersized, but it's like there's 3-gang windows, 2-gang windows. Should there be shutters on all of these windows? Or
I don't believe you need to
architecturally-
carry shutters all the way around the back of the house.
Yeah.
My position on that, I think the main body can have it. You already have some on the second floor. You know, if those fell off, it'd be okay. In my book, but they are.
I mean, I feel like, no, they're not. That right now they're not, but I feel like they should look like they could be,
That's,
right?
Well,
Or
that's-
and that's what's in our design
Right, right.
guidelines.
Be
Yeah.
prepared.
Cause then I'm like, how does that work if you have a 2-gang window or a triple, like on the front of the house, there's 2 triples with these little tiny shutters.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
work.
which like whatever you put on there is never gonna look right.
Well, you have enough in my opinion, you have enough fenestration on this addition that I don't know that you need to have the shutters because you've got a good ratio of wall to window.
Yeah, I
Already.
agree with that.
Yeah, I think you can remove them.
Just get rid
They
of
look
them.
silly. to
On
me.
the side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
debate. 'cause
Because they're
Yeah.
they're not the right size.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, and it's kind of impossible to get it to look right, I think.
Yeah, you can tell they were added later. That's not.
Yeah, I think they're vinyl, like very. But yeah, that was something because I think it's nice even like when you start incorporating paint colors and everything to have that extra detail, but it just doesn't feel like it will ever feel right.
I mean, I don't think you need it.
Yeah.
The thing that is so great about a beautiful stucco house like this is there's a simple elegance to the stucco itself.
Mm-hmm.
If it's done well. You have so many other beautiful details and, you know, your landscaping and stuff. I think just with paint, you can add interest. I mean, right now you've got everything painted, you know, like a vanilla kind of color with a stark white entrance. I think if you did something with you know, give you a little bit of variation between the window and the stucco,
Mm-hmm.
you'd add so much interest in that beautiful detail at your eaves. It's to me, it's just so simply elegant, and I agree that the addition should all be stucco. If anything is going to be hardy, I would make the garage.
Yeah.
'Cause that feels like a
definitely.
secondary structure to me, and so I think that the addition should be stucco. Okay, so at this point, are
I do want to clarify one thing. Can't add a third story. But you could do a half story. That would, or you would need a variance. You
Just
could always
make-
ask for a variance.
Well,
So
you can just do really tall
there's a
steel.
very particular calculation on
It's
how
power.
to measure attic space.
Technically,
which I
yeah.
learned because of the last application.
Okay, what if it's a rooftop play area?
That's
Oh, that's not in the code.
Oh, come on.
No.
It's a tall towered bedroom.
I did want to bring up something. When I said that I would recommend moving this to BZAP, I honestly think, I feel like there could be a positive recommendation with the remand back for design, which makes a difference because if BZAP hears that you have a positive recommendation, they definitely put a lot of weight into your recommendation. So maybe I'm not hearing it the same way as everybody, but I feel like there's a favorable response to this, providing that the design changes, meaning stucco or a diminutive
Mhm.
sided something.
I didn't get a comment. I forgot. Can you go to the overall site plan, like the city plan? If you look at that figure ground of this house, you have to pretend that it's this one.
Oh,
I think it's the ARB file. Yeah, that. So if you look at the neighbor's house to the south, so basically there's the highlighted lot is the connecting covered walkway from the existing garage to the house. If we were to put a square all on that rectangle as part of the addition, it's still significantly smaller in essence of this from the house to the south. And the neighbor's garage is like 1.5 feet from the property line,
Mhm.
which should not be a consideration. It's way too close anyway. And you're not really actually pushing that far into that. So I don't see any impact in a zoning sense, since that
Well,
the
it's-
covered area is already attached.
it's
to the
really an
structure.
existing condition that just needs to be reaffirmed
That's my
because the
point.
addition is
For
different.
me, I have no
I
objection.
can't promise anything, but these things usually don't have a problem at BZAP. But if we send it with just moving it versus sending it with a positive recommendation, because I feel like that's what I'm hearing, that bodes well for
Mhm.
you. And I'm there at the meeting to talk about the design changes.
Great.
So,
I would be excited to see those go through. I mean, I'm in favor.
great.
I think it keeps in flavor with what the existing house is, and it's
Great.
not
So
That's
I-
good.
radically changing.
So
it.
then we will have a motion and I can read the facts and findings. And
So I'll make the motion that we move this to BZAP with recommendation from ARB. And would ask that it come back for further design review.
Okay, I'm going to read the facts and findings. The facts and findings and conclusions of law for application number BZAP 2527 for the property located at 410 South Columbia. The Architecture Review Board recommends that the application move to BZAP with a positive recommendation with the condition that it return to the Architecture Review Board for final design approval. Sound good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Ms. Benasca.
Yes.
Was there a second?
I second Scott.
Oh, I thought I heard a second. I didn't.
I hadn't, that was, I just read the fact that.
It's okay.
Gotcha.
We love your urgency.
Um, Ms. Benasca,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Hire,
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, Tony.
Yes.
Thank you.
May I please hear who, you were you made the motion, Hire and Scott seconded. Okay, great. You've been a pleasure to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you all.
Just a reminder, the next ARB meeting is July 17th, not the 10th. So it's the third Thursday.
Gives you a little more time to work out the
Exactly,
details.
26th.
Yeah.
Of June.
Yes.
Okay, good. We need the time. So thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, on to old business. The first application under old business is BZAP 24-37. The address is 2775 Powell. The applicant is Brian Katie Shepherd. The owner is Brian and Katie Shepherd. The applicant is seeking architectural review and a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for the approval of a certificate of appropriateness to build a new garage at the rear of their property. Is the applicant present?
No.
No.
Okay, we will move on. Will we revisit this if they show up later?
It's up to you.
Okay. We will see. Okay, next application, BZAP 25-1. The address is 188 North Cassingham. The applicant is Stephen Miller and the owner is Dmitry and Nadia Kazvin. The applicant is seeking a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for architectural review and approval of a certificate of appropriateness for an addition and attached garage in the side yard setback. Is the applicant present? Please come forward and be sworn in.
State your name and address, please.
It's Stephen Miller with Kaiser Design Group, 800 Cross Point.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. This application was tabled at the last meeting. However, you have not seen it yet. It was tabled for us to work through what we thought were some problems, which we don't really need to talk about those because it's a new design now. Basically, this is an addition to the back of the house, giving them a one-car garage that's attached to the rear and a new detached garage as well. It will need to go to BZAP, so this is a recommendation rather than just a design approval because it is fairly close to the property line. On the, what direction is that?
And potentially a driveway that doesn't
Yes, and
access
potentially,
the rear yard setback.
yeah, and potentially, the applicant is also asking to maintain the existing driveway. I would ask that we not get into that because that really is a BZAP issue. In theory, this addition could be done even with the variance for the side yard setback and not have that allowed the driveway and still work. So we'll let BZAP deal with that issue. Rather than discuss the merits of allowing that driveway to remain or not.
Can I ask one question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Because I hadn't followed, it's been a while, so I hadn't followed and seen this one. Have you looked at the lot coverage? Are you good on lot
Yes.
coverage? Okay, cool.
The lot coverage requirement is no more than 60%.
Yeah, for
Uh,
all impervious surfaces.
right, for all impervious materials. So based on what we would remove on this drawing, the math comes out to 56%.
Gotcha.
So we're just under.
I have learned Steve is very meticulous about his calculations. Yeah, and also we do have time between now and the BZAP to also have, Matt will check all that too. Because anyway, you look at it, you're going to be going to the Board of Zoning and Planning.
Right.
So I brought this up first because this is the most recent, he added this today. It was already in your packet, but it was superimposed on a photograph. So this is a lot easier to read. So thank you for adding that. But now let me go back to the design. I also, you didn't have a chance to make those design changes today that we talked about. The eaves.
No. not
Okay.
yet.
The only real design issue that I wanted to point out is Bill, you'll be happy to hear this. The lamb chop eaves that are in there are not even existing on the regular house. So we had a little talk today about making sure that all the details match that of the original house. So Steve's gonna make sure he changes that. But overall, I mean, the design, it looks okay. I do worry about the proximity architecturally to the neighbor's lot. It looks like about half of the long addition will be kind of blocked by the neighbor's garage anyway. But it'll be interesting to see if the neighbors are here to talk to that anyway. Other than that, there's some just details that I would suggest get worked on, like the grid patterns of the windows, better matching that of the existing house. And like we talked about already, the eaves. That the details get worked out. And those are all just shutters that represent,
Correct, yeah, those are not windows, but
okay.
it was an effort to try to take away the length of that wall, just the blank space. So just creating the shutters to create that pattern, as well as the downspout locations, to try to give it a little bit, to break up the size of that wall.
So you have no windows on that entire,
On that side, no.
okay. I mean, I don't really have much more. I think it's the details, and I'm a little bit concerned about the massing. But I would just let you fill in anything you'd like to explain to the board about the project.
Sure, and so a little bit of the scope on this, and it's a little bit of a, well, we all do this, it's trying to balance needs of the family with adopted ordinances. And on paper, that seems like pretty easy to do, because you have a list of rules, you just follow them and it's all good. But sometimes the needs of the family conflict with the ordinances. And so what my goal is always to try to come out on the other end with a good thing for both sides. A lot of boards, they come out where everybody has just tried to be equally dissatisfied, right? And we're trying to just make sure that on the other side of it, it's good for both sides. So we do have some things that we will go through BZAP with. On this particular lot with this house, the goal was to add a laundry room and a mud room into the rear of the house, as well as an attached garage so that they could get in. Just due to the location, the width of the lot, the orientation of the house on the property, and the fact that our one-car garage, since it's attached, it becomes primary, which then creates the 8-foot setback rather than the 3. There is currently a garage in the back that's accessed through that drive. It was built in the early 40s and has not really been touched since, other than just general maintenance and siding and doors. So the intent is to take that down, rebuild it to current code, current standards it would be the south side of the property, so that we would get our 2 spaces off the rear of the property, the 2 parking spaces. So we did, so this is the design that we came up with to accommodate that. The other issue at hand is, you'll see that large black locust tree, and that is a magnificent tree, and we really don't want to damage it or to tear it down or to cut it down, remove that. So that's part of the reason for the design as it is, because with the new garage detached and the new attached bay, as non-habitable space, it would be easy to do that with a post and beam type construction. So the foundation, rather than being trenched to cut through the root structure of that tree, we could do the pier footings. So 16 to 18 inches and only about 3 feet deep. We did consult with an arborist on that with the main goal of maintaining that tree because it's in the neighborhood up and down the street. It's a significant tree. It's one of the tallest ones there. It's visible from all over, and the size of it just provides shade around, and it just really contributes to the overall look of the neighborhood. We're afraid it would look like a missing tooth if we took it down. All right. So that is the genesis behind the orientation and the design that we have, is to try to maintain and save that tree. It'd be very easy to do a garage on the other side and make it side entry and just access the current drive, but we would lose that. And so we're trying to maintain some of the integrity of the feel of the neighborhood by saving that. So this is our solution to do that. Also, we were able to confirm that we can save the tree, and we're not at risk of even though foundation would be within the drip line, we are the type of foundation that we can use on it would prevent that damage.
Anything else?
Not yet.
Is there anyone else in the audience that came to speak about this application?
We do have the homeowners here. There was a neighbor, Paul was planning to be here, but he had another commitment that he couldn't change. So, but he is the neighbor to the north and is in support of that. And if you look at, if we could go back to that first site plan, if you please. So he has a detached garage, and the offset is allowed to be 3 feet, right? He's a little over 4. And most of our new building is going to be hidden and covered by his. So provided the BZAP approves our variance, we will still have close to, 10 feet, close to 10 feet between the two garages. So even though he is there as a detached garage, he is a little bit further away than the typical 3 feet, and in some cases, 1 foot. We've seen some other ones that are very, very close and almost on the line. But I don't know if the owners.
Did you want to speak? You don't have to if you're.
Any questions? Sure, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, yeah, so if you want to say something, we can swear you in. Otherwise, we're going to go to the board for questions or comments. So
Well, we love the house. We want to preserve the tree. I had several companies offering to take the tree down. It was absolutely no. It's around.
can we swear you in if you're gonna?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll speak up. Thank you.
Can you state your name and address
Oh, I apologize. Dmitry Kasvin, my name.
and address?
188 North Cassingham Road.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So we love the tree. It's messy once a year, but we absolutely love it. It gives us a big shade. It's over 50 feet in diameter, the canopy. It's pretty big, and we maintain it through the years. It's really a centerpiece of our backyard. That being said, it's a locust. It's messy. And we will continue keeping it. We love the house. We residents of Bexley since '96. We own the house since 2000. So, and my wife and I love absolutely our house, and we just need a little more room for, we don't have a mud hole. We basically walking straight into the kitchen from the back. So that's an idea between, behind garage and attaching one. And I don't know, that's all I can tell. Thank you for reviewing it, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to board members then. Ms. Panofsky, you're looking at me, so I'm telling you. Don't make eye contact if you don't want to go first.
Well, I think it's, excuse me, I think it's beautiful that you are designing around such a centerpiece in your backyard. And to really go to the extent of reaching out to arborists and trying to find a solution to keep that. You're essentially creating a courtyard around it. So I think it's quite nice. What's interesting, I have a similar situation in my house. And my husband and I always joke about doing the shotgun of a driveway where it's a drive-through. We're not, it's okay, but but I think it's really interesting when we come up with clever ideas and to come up with a solution for unmet needs. And so I would be in favor of this. I don't really have any issue with the massing. As long as the details of the eaves and the cornices and all of that match to what is there, the existing. And I know that there were some differences in what's being presented to what's actually there. And I believe that Karen can work with you on that. I had one observation or question. And if we go to your elevations or even like your floor plan, either one, actually, can you go to the proposed right elevation? One more. Well, that works. So you have these French doors that go into your main space. And then to the right of that, go to the next one. You have a single man door that goes into what is your mudroom. I'm curious as to why you haven't created a deck so that you have one means to go up to a deck that leads to both doors instead of having two sets of stairs. And to me, that just feels like a better solution, but maybe it's the tree. And that's my only comment really, is because I would want to access that space and be just a little elevated, especially under a tree canopy. So that's my only comment. And it's not a requirement.
Yeah, so we do intend to do something with that. We understand that a deck is a different application and it's a different, sometimes a different approval, be it a deck or a patio or some type of an outdoor space.
Okay.
We are planning to do that. We are working also, depending on what that material is, we need to make sure that we don't cover the roots of the tree. And so that's, I guess, to be determined. We are looking at some different impervious materials that could be used as a patio that would also not hinder watering and absorption.
Okay.
Into it. So, but yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my only comment. I thought, like instead of having a set of stairs that's 5 feet from each other, it'd be nicer to have, one bigger deck that you can access from a single stair. So those are my comments.
Mr. Hall?
So, I don't have a whole lot to on here. I think it's a fine addition. I think this house is very interesting. It makes you stare at
This is a Sears and Roebuck house back from the way early 20s.
I do appreciate the idea of trying to create this little courtyard in the back. I think people love that. I think that back there covering on it, get around out of heat free.
Yeah.
I think would be something to explore. Is there a reason, however, you reoriented the site, so all of the access for the vehicles and everything to the site is off the back alley, and you're proposing to leave that a little bit of strip of driveway in. What is sort of why that there? It looks like the driveway goes nowhere.
Yeah. Without going into a whole lot of detail, when we talked about balancing the needs of the family, there is an elderly family member that is disabled, uses a wheelchair, that is going to be coming to stay with them. And yeah, and when looking at the interior of the home, the only 3-foot door is on the front. And even when I was out there field measuring, going down the hallway, my wheels were scraping the halls because in the 20s, they were just narrow. And so in looking at modifying the interior of the home, the widened doorways, hallways, all those walls are bearing. So it's not really conducive to modifying the inside of the house. So one of the part of this addition also has a full bath. And so one of the issues is helping that family member in and out of the house and being able to load them into a vehicle. By removing the driveway, we also remove the curb cut off the road, and we have the 10 feet of grass between. And so that's the reason for our request on the variance, is to delay the enforcement of the removal of the driveway. We don't have a problem with removing it. It's just that we would like to not do it yet. And that's the reason for that is it's a safety hazard, of being able to even healthcare, first aid, ambulances, and so on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Heyer?
Yeah, I don't have any major concerns with the design other than I really, as Mr. Hall was alluding to, the archtop windows that kind of work their way up the stair, ending in a beautiful 6/6 window that's over the bay. And then you have the gable. And so one eave is down here, one eave's up here, and you got a gable that's somewhere, it's centered over the bay. That is all purposely designed, right? That was all part of the original Sears package. But what you're adding on to it is flush with that, which means that you'll lose that character because the siding is going to just be flush with it, meaning they're in the same plane, existing to new. And my suggestion, and we usually make this suggestion, is that you just offset it a little bit, maybe 6 or 8 inches with siding, so that Sears, that beautiful elevation retains without bleeding into the new siding that's behind it. It doesn't affect anything in your upstairs there's a door, I think, going into the walk-in closet, but if it's just 6 or 8 inches, you still have the same amount of square footage.
Right.
So
And it preserves that vertical line.
and it preserves that vertical line.
Yeah.
The ones that do go flush, they never look right. I mean, in my opinion, but anyway. So the other thing in with that is there any way you can get a window into that walk-in closet on the second floor? Because I just think that even though if you go to that elevation, I'll just do it on the screen. Yeah. So if you're taking this face here and you're pushing it back 6 to 8 inches so that this corner stays clean, then this roof, because you're not moving your garage, this roof would actually come up a little bit more.
Mhm.
And now you have even more of a kind of defined rectangle there. And I just think you need a window, even
We
if
can
it's a
do
small
something with
one.
it.
Yeah. Even if it's just the second floor, if
Well, below it is the mudroom, and it would be so much nicer if it had a window.
there, yeah. So, I mean, it'd be great if they both had a small window, even if it was a shaped window. Do a circular window, do an oval window, do something. I mean, you're having so much fun here with your Sears. I think that would be really, really neat. The other thing otherwise it's just details. I love the shutters on the side of the garage. I mean, that is something that it's really nice to see an applicant come with a solution for a blank facade like that. I love it. And then the garage, I'm not sure I understand why you don't have any windows, because the garage is turned, so it's facing into the tree. So why not have a window on that side? There's no window on the side facing facing
Oh, yeah,
your yard
on the detached garage.
on the detached
Yeah,
garage. Yeah.
okay.
So right here, I mean, I think the garage requirements, there's no requirement for windows at all. I just think it would be nice.
Yeah.
So in my backyard, I have a 5 foot diameter maple that's in my backyard. And we actually built our deck around it. And it's amazing how these things grow. Every year we have to like keep trimming the floor, the boards, not every year. But we built the deck over the whole root system. And because it's a hardy, not a hardy, it's an AZEK deck, which is a solid polymer decking. And it's permeable. So all that water goes through our deck and we've had no issues with the tree at all. We even cut off a couple of roots because of a foundation for an addition. But we were worried that we would lose the tree. But it's actually healthier now than it's ever been. It's just been wonderful. So, to the points that were made, you can do a permeable deck, even if it's over the root system, even if it's not going to go around it like mine, you still have that option. So I like the idea that was brought up earlier about creating a deck out there. These systems, there's a couple different companies that make these decks. It's not wood, it's a plastic, it's a polymer, but they're really good products. AZEK is one of the best.
AZEK Trex is another.
Yeah, AZEK's really nice because it's a solid material,
Yeah.
and when you cut through it, you can use the end for an end detail because
And
it's solid.
I think there's a type of adhesive that it uses where it actually welds itself together, right?
Yeah.
The two pieces become one.
And you have to place your joists every 12 inches instead of 16 because it is a plastic. But
Sure.
it is permeable. We've had no issues with our root system, so it's just a suggestion. You might want to look into that. But I would make it a condition that this addition be shifted over 6 to 8 inches and adjust the mudroom walk-in closet part just be shifted to expose that old Sears corner, and that I think a condition for the 2 windows, even if they're small and shaped.
Mr. Scott?
So you've probably heard it. Bexley is a front porch community. Everybody likes to walk. You see everybody on the street, people on the front porches. I would strongly argue that Bexley is a backyard community as well, where I talk to my neighbors 90% of the time over my fence. I feel like tool time, where I'm talking to my neighbors. But literally, that's how I've gotten to know both my neighbors is through my backyard conversations. And really, North Bexley is no different. I'm in Central. I was in 2000 South. I moved around all the time. The backyards were critical, even with the fences. It's a critical connection in our neighborhood as a fabric. Your lot is 142 feet deep. You have 100 feet of structure in that linear length when you add that garage, even though it's not attached. I think that's an absurd amount of linear footage. And you have your front yard at about 40 feet setback. And then the rest from that point all the way to the alley is full structure, though it's not attached, the detached garage. And I think that's really slicing this neighborhood and this street in half. You're going to really block the visual connection through your backyard. I know it's one story, but I'm not taller than the ridge of that one car garage. So I have a real problem. Even at this, I think you could actually get off your zoning 3 feet. You could shift this garage and not disrupt the roofs and still make this thing work with the zoning for that particular addition. I just have a real problem with this length of house in conjunction with the neighboring houses. It's literally a wall now that you've built from the front facade to the alley. It just kills the visual connection between these properties, and I'm not sure how you get over that. And really, for that reason, I think you've done a wonderful job. I agree with the aesthetic things that you've done in the house and balancing that. I think it's great. I think in this location, it just doesn't work, and I could never support it. Sorry.
So I agree with Mr. Heyer that that you need to step back and add 2 windows into that facade. I hear Mr. Scott's concern about the length. I share that, but I also, don't know that there's a better design solution. If you have to have an attached garage, which I understand some people do, so. Did you look at other options? Did you draw other things that that didn't have that long span to it?
Yes, we did look at other options. And the only option that we could get with at least a single bay on the garage that could attach to the house that didn't involve the tree removal was having the garage on this side. And to your point about having a long shotgun garage, one of our iterations had a 2-car garage that was just long stacked through that you could drive through. So great minds think alike, I guess, right?
Well, they have to use it every day. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
So that one is on the editing room's floor at the moment. But we did look at some other options. We did look at a variety of access points from the alley, from the front. And we just couldn't get anything in there to at least have one bay that was attached to the garage, to the house, without getting in too far to the root structure. And we spoke, it was interesting when we spoke with the arborist, and the reason I called out specifically that it's a black locust. And I'll admit I'm a little bit of a nerd on this.
That's awesome.
It was fascinating to listen to this guy talk about root structures of various species of trees. And how they go out, and then after a while they go down. And so what he looked at is the drip line of this with specifically a black locust is the root structures are fairly close to the surface, but as they go out, they also tend to go down. And so we were trying to keep that in mind as well. So in trying to keep our buildings, the new construction, as far away from that as we could. And so with that, and then also using like a post and beam type of foundation, it just really mitigated any damage that we were, and that was kind of the driving force behind it. But to your question, we did look at several options, and we were just trying to balance saving that tree. And part of that reason for the tree is it is, like Dimitri said, it is kind of the focal point of their backyard, and it's their stake in the ground. But it also, neighbors on the other side of the alley and on both sides benefit from that tree. And we've heard that even when we were working on this and talking with the one neighbor in particular, they love the tree. It does give them shade, and it does contribute to the overall look of the neighborhood. So
Yeah.
that was the driving factor.
I guess my question would be more about the length of the 1-car garage. So what is am I adding 12.9 and 9.3 to get the length of that section of the 1-car garage from the back of the house, which is basically as you pull the car in?
Yeah, so currently right now, the garage portion is 22 feet. We do have some room to shorten that and still be able to have a single garage, a single car.
I wonder, does that help, Mr. Scott? And I mean, for me, if that was even just cut down by a couple feet, it feels like it would just help it. Like every foot matters
Well,
when it gets that big.
Yeah.
and if we're shifting the powder room or the restroom 6 to 8 inches to the right,
Mhm.
it's actually giving you more, a little, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you're getting more storage area in the garage for that portion. So could that also, because of that, could that wall shift further
Yeah, I
To
believe it
the-
could. And
to the
and
east?
also, if we are moving it in a little bit, we also have to maintain 10 feet between, right? And so by shifting it a little bit over, we are going to have to shorten it somewhat just to be able to maintain that space.
So
My
the-
preference is that we keep that 10 feet. If we can get 11, we will. If we can get 12, we will. I would try to keep that as large, that spacing as big as we could get.
Oh, you're talking about from here to here? That 10 feet?
No, the 10 feet between the detached garage and the primary.
This?
No, if the
It's
new
a
garage. is
angled
detached-
Oh, that, oh, I see. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Understand.
So if we move the single bay garage to the right a little bit or to the south, you know, even that's 8 inches or a foot even.
Yeah,
Um,
but this area is shifting this way, right? Because we're gonna offset here now.
Right,
So this all shifts over. That gives you more room because this stays where it is. That gives you more room. Could you pull this back? You know,
yes,
and then maybe this gets pulled back. I'm just trying to,
sure, yeah. So you take a little bit off the front, a little bit off the
Yeah.
back.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think that would help me a lot in the length of that. Does that make you feel better about it, Mr. Scott? If
No.
this dimension comes back 3 or 4 feet?
No,
you're still-
it's still 100 feet deep and it's twice as long as any other house in the street. So I just have a concern with that becoming this kind of structural wall. I think it helps the site planning. I agree. I mean, I think there's a solution that he's come up with that meets the needs and it's working. But for me, it's a contextual issue in the neighborhood that I don't particularly care for, and I don't think it's correct. But
Yeah.
Sorry. This is also, I mean, it's a legitimate architectural discussion as well. This is one of those rare cases where it both are valid, but you know, and we've talked about this in great detail. I don't have a lot of confidence that zoning's gonna see this favorably for the feelings that I said in my staff report and that Mr. Scott has. Nothing to do with aesthetics, you know, we've talked about that. I mean, I think it needs to be heard at zoning before we, once again, maybe we should move this to zoning because,
I'd like to see that garage move back to whatever you determine is the minimum number that you can get it at. It feels goofy to me and not in a good way. So for me, as much as you can shorten that, if you could get 5, 6 feet out of it, that helps a lot, I think, for
I think it's also important. I mean, I understand the concerns, but it's a single bay, right? So the length of this, I'm not talking about the attachment part of it, just the visual of a single bay that's long. It's still really the depth of some of the garages that we look at that are 2 bay. And if you look at the garage directly to the left, you can see how the length of that compares to yours.
Mhm.
And it's not, I mean, if you shortened it a little bit, like we're saying, you'd be at the same length as your neighbor. It's just that you have 1 bay, so it looks more shotgun.
yeah.
The attachment part is different. I understand that concern, definitely.
Okay, so I think you've heard some of our concerns, recommendations and stuff. At this point, we can say that, you know, you could go to BZAP, but I don't know if we're comfortable giving it a favorable.
well, there, I mean, you guys, you all, including you, have a lot of choices. You could ask for it to be tabled and come back with some design changes back here. I'm not giving you recommendations from me. I'm just telling you what the possibilities are. You all could give it a positive you know, you could say, no, I don't want it tabled, I want to vote. You could give it a positive recommendation, a negative recommendation, or just move it to BZAP. In any case, I would suggest that it be remanded back here for final design approval, if approved for the variance. Once again, I always attend BZAP meetings, so they're not going to just get a blanket positive or negative or move. I'm there to tell them what the discussion was as well.
So based on the board comments that you heard today, which one of those options would you like to move forward with?
Well, I don't disagree with any of the comments. Well, respectfully, Mr. Scott, but and so we have no problem being able to shorten it both from the rear and from the front and in moving it in a little bit as well, which would probably help the BZAP, right? The variance, because our variance is like 32 inches, I think, that we're looking for.
So you can make any changes that you've heard here
Yep.
before you go to BZAP if you feel that it's going to strengthen your, you know, if any of us feel that it's going to strengthen your case. You would still need to come back here for final design review.
Yes, yeah, I understood, yeah, and I would request that really because I would want, I would want a second set of eyes before it was approved, but yeah, so I have no problem shortening it, moving it over. These are all great suggestions and very good feedback. So I will incorporate that as much as we can. Still with the goal of meeting the needs of the family and preserving the tree. So as the two main driving factors.
So would you like to go to BZAP and us not vote on it? So you're just gonna move it to BZAP and then you're gonna come back to us either way? And if we vote, then they hear what we voted. If we don't vote, then you're just going on with no recommendation
Yeah.
and just know that it's coming back. And you would not be the first person to ever do that. That happens quite often,
Okay,
especially if we have quite a few changes that
Mhm.
we'd like to see. We just send it on, because if you force us to vote now, we have to vote on what we have in front of us.
exactly, yeah.
So I just think you could be fine to go to BZAP
Right.
first and then come back after they, vote and tell you what you can
But-
and can't do.
We still
No.
make the recommendation though, right?
Yeah, I mean, you either vote on it in the to move it to BZAP with a positive recommendation. You can vote no, or you can vote yes. That's the motion to BZAP. Or you can just move it to BZAP.
Yeah, and that's what I think, that's what I feel might be better to just move to BZAP, because I can only vote on this that we have in front of me. And so my inclination might be to vote no today because I don't love what's here. We're asking him to make changes, so why don't we move it to BZAP? See what they say, and then when he comes back to us, he can make the changes, and he's working with BZAP vote.
Yeah, I mean, it's really up to you how you want to, whether you want to take a vote with a recommendation or just move it. I was getting the sense that you'd probably have not a unanimous vote, but a positive vote, but I'm not sure that that's completely true.
Yeah.
Either way, they're going to hear the background from my report.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with moving it to BZAP right now, with the understanding that we still have some of these details to work out and that we are going to come back and get approval from you before anything would go
Yeah.
forward.
So the motion will be to move this application to BZAP with the condition that if the zoning is approved, it be remanded back to the Architecture Review Board for final design review and approval.
So moved.
Second Panofska.
No, this is just a move to BZAP. Right? Do we call the roll?
Mr. Scott, I was waiting for you to finish.
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Panofska,
Yes.
Mr. Hire,
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
Yes. Okay, good luck at BZAP, and we look forward to seeing you back. And
I,
if you get a positive vote from BZAP, then we will see you on July 17th if you want to come back that soon.
yeah,
Okay,
very well, thank you.
thank you so much.
Very nice presentation. Thank you.
Okay, our next application in old business is ARB 25-21. The address is 800 South Cassingham. The applicant is Sean McNeil and the owner is Spencer Calhoun. The applicant is seeking architectural review and approval of a certificate of appropriateness to add a 10-foot by 18-foot carport to the existing garage and driveway with access to alley and driveway, leaving the garage door on the house side for access to both sides. Also add a 16 by 7 garage door to the alley side of the existing garage and install concrete apron from the garage to the alley. Is the applicant present? Please come forward and be sworn in.
Hello,
State your name and address, please.
Sean McNeil, 331 Charleston Avenue, Columbus, Ohio.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, this application was tabled last month for the applicant to, first of all, update the drawings to more accurately represent the garage that was existing so that we could be comfortable how it attached with some more detail to it. And as well, I think the board also suggested that maybe some other roof massing should be looked at as well, other than just a shed roof. At least we talked about it. I did get one additional piece of material, and this is the new drawing of the side where the roof sheds down. I did not get any of the other two elevations, but this shows the return eaves rather than just non-returning eaves. And it is drawn with a little bit more detail. The applicant did agree to do the columns in the same style as are on the front porch, which we talked about at the last meeting. But I'll leave it to you to fill in any additional information.
Yes, so I did another drawing, which you see there. Took a while to draw it, but it's definitely a lot more proportionate. It's got the same pitch, the correct eave height and everything. I didn't draw another elevation. Didn't really feel that it like depicted. I thought about it, but it didn't really. It's hard to really depict how the fascia would connect with the existing fascia. That is going to connect. It's got. If you look at the original picture, I don't know if you can pull that up, but it's got a detail that comes around to a I call it an eyebrow. I don't know if an eave return, I guess is what you would call that. It's got a fascia that's just going to connect to the fascia on the carport itself. And so of course, you can see the fascia piece, but you wouldn't see the garage piece the way that connects. So the elevation that I did draw does kind of show that as well. So it shows the fascia coming around, and then it connects to the fascia on the carport. And then we including the columns that are on the front of the house. We're going to match those as well. So.
Okay. Mr. Scott, you want to go first?
I appreciate the updated elevation. It's definitely more accurate to, I'm assuming this is your handiwork. Since you
Yeah.
said how long it took.
I drew it, yeah. It took me about an hour. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an architect.
No, we get it. I understand. I appreciate the effort.
Getting this.
I think the photograph for me helps solidify what your intent is. I think if you're doing a shed roof with a rake trim and it ties into, that's not the right, it's gonna have to be the photograph and it ties into the slope of the eave return. And your fascia turns into that, the shed roof. I think that's the best way to do it if you're not bringing it fully inboard another foot or two. I think you have the height. The facade of this existing garage is nothing to scream about. So I think having a little carport is not a terrible idea. I'm not a huge fan of is it enclosed or is it just a shed slab?
There's a ceiling.
You're going to do a triangle.
Yeah, we'll do like a soffit ceiling as well, and then like a matching siding on the side there. So it'll match the existing siding, which it's a 4-inch straight lap.
I guess I'm a little less interested in that. I'm worried about the quality of that feeling tying to the thin columns. And I'm not sure based on the drawing of exactly how that looks, because it's going to need to have a little bit of substance. I know that you're an experienced builder from I think your last conversation, you've been building for a while.
For about 20 years.
So obviously have experience in that, but I think in essence, I think this is the right direction, and I think I could definitely support this. I'm not sure. It looks like, are you just doing is it existing driveway? Or are you putting a new concrete? How are you mounting these posts?
The driveway is existing. We are going to tear that out and put in a concrete slab with footers for the posts.
For the post?
And then a connection of concrete to the.
And those posts are just going to sit directly on that concrete? No.
On the slab, yeah.
And then any type of trim around? I know you're cladding it with 1x6 maybe?
We're going to match the porch so it has like a paneled style.
Okay, so a little bit of detail.
I don't think it doesn't have like a plinth or anything on the bottom.
Okay. I just think it can't just be a simple post sitting on concrete. I think that's going to be
Yeah,
It's-
there's a very small detail at the bottom. It's very simple. There is something there though, but those I believe are 8 inches, and I think I'd scale it down a little bit because the house is a little bigger. so
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Some inches.
Yeah, I think the challenge is, making it look like it's a permanent, not a weekend type of build. When you're doing these types of shed roofs and they're simple, right? I think that's the point.
Mm.
And how do you get kind of a look that looks like it's going to be around for a while and not just kind of
I think the
temporary?
nice part about that is that it has a soffitted ceiling and the beams are wrapped and everything. So it doesn't have that, to me, it feels like a carport, like a shed roof that's open, just has that exposed kind of unfinished look. And I feel having it wrapped a little bit more and having it enclosed is going to give it that feeling that you're talking about, more of a permanent type of solidity kind of.
Yeah, and I hear your argument. The new drawing helps with understanding the proportion and how this thing slips in. And I think it's an improvement, and I think it makes sense based on our dialogue last time. And I think it's kind of fitting in, especially in this location on the alley. Knowing the alley and what's other things that are happening on the alley. I don't think this is taking away from that, and I think it's. We've had a carport recently last year that we debated on it and approved, and it was installed, and I actually kind of like the look of it. So I'm just curious if obviously these look like little pipes. The columns actually will be wider than what I see here. So the substance of this is and I'm not picking on your drawings, but aren't really representative of what's going to be. And I think I'm trying to picture exactly what this is going to be and how that's going to look on this building. And I think it's it's going to look more like a front porch. And I think that's okay. That's kind of an interesting notion of this being a carport.
Kind of the idea is to match the porch.
Yeah. So
essentially.
I think I'm in favor of where you're taking this so far.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hire?
This is starting to look like a real South Bexley garage, like quirky. Yeah, I've got a neighbor behind me who it's an old I'd say 19 teens garage. It's got the old siding that's like this wide, shiplap.
Mhm.
It's a 1-car garage, and the gable end of where over the one garage door has like rafter tails that come out
Okay.
going up the gable. No, I'm sorry. They're going down. They're at the bottom, and they have a door casing, and then they have a raking piece of 1x, and then they have a crown.
Huh.
So the crown comes down, and I think they put it on there and didn't realize that there was a rafter tail sticking out that was inset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they just returned the crown on itself right before the corner. I love it. That to me is there's a knowledge of how you work with that kind of language that South Bexley's filled with that stuff. There's some bad stuff too, but there's always been that sort of that odd detailing. This just fits with that. I mean, I would encourage you to not necessarily have an eave return like you're talking about. I mean, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're doing with these. You're matching the existing garage with having an eave return at the gable end?
Well, there's an eave return that already exists, and we're just because the carport is as wide as the building itself.
You're just adding on the carport.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Because I'm looking at this garage going, that looks like a different garage. I thought we were dealing with a different garage.
I'm
Okay.
simply just adding the carport to the garage.
I forgot about that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, normally we wouldn't, if that garage was up for approval, I mean, we'd probably have a lot more to talk about,
So
but
you can see here in these photos.
Yeah.
So he's going to tie into those
Yeah.
eve returns.
so, I mean, it's a carport. I don't know that you need to create, can you go to the wall section of the, yeah, I don't know that you need to do all this fussiness right here.
Mhm.
I mean, why don't you just leave these rafter tails exposed and paint them? You can put a board on it, put a gutter, or just have a fascia at the end of it. But why do you need to have a flat board? What's the flat board for in the soffit?
I like when it's enclosed like that because today's materials are OSB and so many times the nails go right through it and then it just looks so unfinished. It looks.
You're
and
talking about looking at the underside of the sheathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Could you do it at the angle?
you could do it on an angle. Yeah.
I don't think that this detail needs to match, what you have on the garage. I don't think it needs to match. And this gives you the complication of what do you do at the ends? Are you going to have your typical lamb chop?
Yeah, that's what I'm,
Where it looks like a little hammer or an axe end, where
It's like a little bird
Yeah.
box, basically.
yeah. So I would just slope it. There's nothing to match. I like the fact that you're finishing the ceiling. It's going to feel like a porch. I like that.
quirky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a big problem that we have, where people want to soffit, but they don't know what to do with it at the end, and we wind up blowing it. Whereas the garage I was just telling you about, they figured out a way to, make it work, in a quirky way. And I think you have an opportunity here to do something that doesn't go against our architectural design guidelines with just trying to create that little hammer at the end. So,
Yeah. I mean,
but
could be angled.
you could play with that. I like what you're doing with the columns. I think at the bottom, I would just put a Simpson base on that thing and then have that detail just hover.
Run by, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's right down on your front porch, but
That's what I was gonna do is just match the front porch exactly. And I think it's just the one
but what I'm saying is I would hold that whole thing up from the concrete so
Yeah.
that the water doesn't
yeah,
deteriorate.
you have to do that. I mean, I think there's a code that says it has to be connected to the concrete because you have to have a rigid connection. But then it's a good idea to keep it off of there, just
It's
to
the wrap.
prevent
You're
it from rotting.
holding the wrap.
Hold the wrap up.
That little-
a little
wrap
bit.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, half inch. off the
Yeah.
front.
Because it'll
Yeah.
rot over time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That concrete will hold moisture.
Oh, unless you're using another material, or what are you using to wrap?
If you use AZAC or something,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's what we used.
We haven't really talked about the materials, but yeah.
You can take AZEC all the way down. I did that on
Yeah, you
mine.
can do AZAC because AZAC's not gonna rot.
Right. That's all I had.
It's a good product.
Ms. Panofsky?
I don't really have additional comments other than what's already been said. I think it'll feel a lot more, I would want to hang out there and not park a car. If you're going to put brand new concrete and, do the underside, for me, I'd be like, well, let's landscape around it and make it
Add
a
a
little.
light.
I'm not sure what their plans are with it, but that's definitely an option, yeah.
They are you putting lights in?
What's that?
Ceiling
Lights.
fans,
Lights?
Can lights? Are you putting lights in it anywhere under there?
Lights on our side of
I don't
that.
have any plans. There's lights on the door now.
The door.
The door, there's already a light to the.
Add a second floor on it.
Yeah, tower.
Tower.
No, I think you definitely want a light. So I think you want some light there for security.
Yeah, I would recommend at least, a sconce or two on the other side of that.
There is I'm pretty sure there's a light on the door. Okay.
Recommend that.
Yeah, I don't really have additional comments. I think it's great. I think your columns that you show right now are maybe 4 inches tighter than
The
what.
ones
they're actually
in the
gonna
drawing
be.
are a little bit off scale, yeah.
But I think that when you actually build it,
But I'll
it'll
make
feel
sure that
proportionally better. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So.
Mr. Hall?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think I'm just embracing the drawings don't really depict it, so I'm just embracing the idea that it's going to look like a porch. And I've heard that going around enough that I'm really confident with it. So I appreciate that you're filling in the ceiling and the columns are going to match the front and everything. And so I think it's going in a good direction ultimately. I could support it too.
Okay, I have nothing to add. So, okay, so what I hear is that we are, do we need findings of fact?
Yes. The findings of fact and conclusions of law for application number ARB 25-1 for the property located at 800 South Cassingham. The Architect Review Board grants a certificate of appropriateness to add a 10 by 18-foot carport to existing garage and driveway with access to the alley and driveway. With the condition that the applicant work on the eve details. All design changes are subject to review and approval by the residential design consultant.
You understand the findings of fact as they have been read?
Work on the eve details, you mean
What he was just, what were we just
about the
talking
angling? Yeah, okay.
Or whatever you and
Whatever
the,
work out, yeah.
with Ms. Booker work out.
Okay, is there a board member that will make a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second, Scott.
Thank you. Ms. Panofsky,
I had to check.
Yes.
Mr. Hire,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Madam Chair Tony.
Yes,
Thank you.
you are approved. Thank you very much.
Can't wait to see it.
Okay, so we are not going back to 2775 Powell. So what happens to that?
Put it on the table. It's up to you.
Okay. Do we need to vote on a tabling for them?
Now you just let it go.
No,
Okay,
They can put it on record.
yeah.
Is it a table or just a move to a date?
I mean,
Certain?
this case has been going on since last November. I think it's probably, I mean, I hate to do that to staff, but I think it's probably fair to notice it again and also confirm that they're gonna be here, and this has been taking a ton of staff time. And unless you just wanna do it.
Was
You
this,
need to make a motion if you wanna move it to July 17th. What do you wanna do that?
Sure.
So that you don't have to know?
No, I can notice it again. It should be. I can notice it again. It's no big deal.
yeah, because I mean, there's no applicant here. I wouldn't want to make a motion on something without the applicant. Good.
I don't think we're allowed to.
Yeah, you don't have to. And I will notice it again and I'll confirm that they're gonna be here on the 17th.
Is this the one where we asked for details to go out to the board members? Is that from last month? Is that the one where?
No, but the one that I did send you guys a column sample for the house that, you know, kind of was after the fact, had the stone patio. And I didn't hear from you, but I heard from everybody else that was okay. It's just a simple square column with the kind of details that you had asked for. Yeah,
so Matt, I'm asking, do we need to table it or
No.
not? No, okay,
I'll renotice it and I'll confirm they're gonna be here and they're gonna be here. They'll be
okay.
okay.
All right, so we have other business, which the first one is the ARB workshop. Did you send out a doodle poll for that?
I did, and I also sent out the final decision, and the only person unfortunately that can't be here is Bill.
What is
But-
the date for that? Do you know?
July 18th,
July 19th?
19th. I can look it up.
I think it was a Friday.
It was a Friday.
Then it would be the 18th.
I thought it was 18.
Yes.
I have it on here.
Oh, good. Well, you said no on the doodle poll. I'm very happy to hear that. That means everyone can come. So,
You sure you can make?
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
so I'll send out,
have it
I'll
at
send out a calendar invite.
I have it at here.
You can't?
I was in Central Time and I was probably here. Oh, you're up.
Well, you did say yes.
I did. Then the next day I found that I couldn't go.
Oh,
Okay.
I have it at 1 p.m.
Sorry.
One?
I have it at 1 p.m. on my,
I don't even think I gave a choice of one.
I don't think you did either.
oh, you know what? You know what? That's not a
Matt's on
meeting invite
Central
from you.
Time, too.
That was a hold, I think, a hold time on my calendar. I hold certain times and dates that don't
Okay.
get filled up.
I will get back to you. I will send you all evites tomorrow. Not evites, but you know, calendar invites. I also will, I'll send you an email because I want you to reply with any a subject. Why does this keep happening?
We had one subject that, which is why we called it, right?
We have a lot of
We have a
subjects.
lot. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'd like you to add as many as you can. So,
Will you put those subjects in the
yep,
invite and then we can
yeah.
see what you've got to
Yep.
add to.
And just to remind you that we've said it a lot tonight, that the July ARB meeting is July 17th, but also please mark in your calendars for July 10th, which is our regular meeting date. We will be having a community presentation of the commercial, it's not really a
It's a
presentation,
workshop.
the workshop for the community for commercial design guidelines. We had a really fun planning meeting. Yes, was that yesterday?
Yeah, the steering committee meeting.
Yeah, steering committee. Yeah, that was a good one. What? The 10th.
What time?
I'm looking it up.
I want to say 5.
It is,
Yeah.
6:30 to 8.
July 10th.
I will, 6:30 to 8 on July 10th. I will not be here.
I won't be,
I think it'll be an interactive kind of session. I have nothing to do with it. Matt will know, but it sounded like that from,
Yeah, it'll be good.
it should be good. We had a very interactive steering committee meeting the other day. It was really fun. And very productive. Commercial design guidelines. We are no longer calling them Main Street. They will be including Livingston, Cassidy, and Main Street.
Yeah.
And Pete is our representative on that committee. You could say no, you know. That's all I have. Anything else?
Just, I just wanted to reiterate one more thing because we've heard from a few folks in the community, a little bit of grief over garages coming to you all now. So the code, I just want to reiterate for the record, the code changed in 2021, and I don't think maybe the process changed over the last 4 years, but the code change requires the demolition and replacement of a garage to have an approved replacement plan approved by you all, by the Architecture Review Board. So we are now adhering to that part of the code.
Thank you.
Yeah, but there's been some feedback from some folks that they're not too happy about it. And I said, well, I don't make the code, you can write to council.
And is that because it's taking so much longer? Is this a longer process by coming to us?
Yeah, I think I've heard from some that now they have to hire architects. And I said, we've had homeowners get approved with sketches on graphing paper, and we've worked with homeowners before. You don't necessarily have to. We've heard from randomly some architects, and we don't understand that, but yes, it varies, but it's the code.
It's hard.
It's the law, and I'm gonna.
I personally think that it will pan out that there will be no additional.
I
time
was going to
for-
ask, in your long experience
There-
with seeing code changes, you get this stir
Always
up
get
and
this
then it
pushback.
calms down.
Ironically, one of the loudest voices against this has been an architect who will probably just be consent anytime he has a garage. So, you know, I don't think,
Say no more.
I think it's just, I mean, this was a case in point tonight. That clearly the carport was not done by an architect. I mean, we don't demand that, but it'll give the board a chance to see the garages. If it works the way Matt and I think, 9 out of 10 of anything that comes through is gonna be on consent anyway. Because, you
And so
know,
we're not asking for any more information than what you would be asking for anyway.
no.
They still need to get a building permit, so they're still gonna drawings, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It's
Yep.
just change is hard.
Yeah.
That's it. There's a perception that it's gonna add a lot of time, and I just don't think that's
I don't
true.
think it will. And I'm glad for it. They're the most significant accessory structure we can have, so it's important.
What about the mortar? Do we want to talk about that?
The what?
Yeah,
The border?
the mortar.
Oh, yeah, no, the consensus was that the middle
Right.
right side was the best. I think I heard that from
Okay.
at least a majority. I talked to Jason. He's putting together a sample of that for us, and it'll be there on Monday.
Thank you, Suzanne, for making that recommendation. That was, I didn't even think about it. Like, can we just tell them to pull out samples?
Yeah.
Well, so what was interesting is when I went to go look at it, I pulled up the photo and I was like, this doesn't even look like
Mm-mm.
that. So that's when I was like, this is silly that you guys just are guessing.
Right.
Just pull some samples and we'll pick
Yep.
one.
And let me tell you, they have been nothing but wonderful. Jason's been great to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Takes every
So-
suggestion. I didn't think he was gonna put up another sample all for us, but he is. And that was his, you know.
Did you guys see the window with the cladding and everything on the main wall?
Yeah.
The black window.
The details are just concerning.
Well,
The way they come down and meet the brick and they have this flashing that comes out over with the counter flashing coming out underneath of it is, to me, not a long lasting
Is it,
detail.
but is it an aesthetic thing or is it
Not
a
aesthetic.
construction thing?
It's a construction thing. And then when,
It's not.
yeah, I mean, well, I think it's gonna lay with them. I mean, it's just, it's not a detail that we would do. So it's,
But the color is fine.
So the,
I think the color's fine. The color of it and everything look good. I mean, aesthetically, you look at it, it's great, but then when you start looking at the details and how it's coming together, it's like, whoa, I'm not sure that's gonna
Is it-
stand the, you know.
How do you think
but
that,
as designed or as you saw it, does it meet the building code? So there's varying levels of, right? Does,
Careful.
that's what we're.
don't answer that.
Careful, don't answer that.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know if you
but
should
that's
answer that.
great. We're-
I abstain.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm just saying, there's what we can try to require and there's what the building code.
Yeah, I guess I kind of look at it two different ways, Pat. It's one of these things where we want this building to look good for a long time.
Agree.
Talk to Jason about
Yeah.
it because he
And
wants it to look.
Water is gonna be water is gonna be its worst enemy.
I think the real question is that the final detail or is that
Yeah.
the mock-up detail and they
Right.
plan on doing it differently? I
Doing
think
it
we need to ask some questions before we start making
And then
assumptions.
how that cap flashing comes out with the counter flashing that's coming out underneath of it along the top of that sill, that is not gonna hold up.
And I get they should be building it as they're gonna try to build it over there. So the assumption is right, but
They,
it's dangerous to.
Why don't we meet him out there?
Okay, yeah, and the superintendent's been great, and he did tell me today they are gonna start the lower brick with the dark mortar. So if you see that going up tomorrow or before you give final approval, don't be alarmed, but they are, if you've noticed, they're really gonna hit that front facade hard.
so they are gonna do a little mock-up of the middle right?
Correct. And it should be done on Monday. He texted me like, he's on it.
So I would ask that they put that sample closer to where the gray hardy siding is,
Okay.
or the metal siding, because I just want to, I want to see how they look together, that beigeish mortar with the gray, the dark gray.
Are we adjourned?
Thank you all.